Chapter 18, The Kitchen. After carefully wiping his shoes on the doormat, Azer entered. Carrying his bike helmet under the arm and the backpack on his back, he walked down the corridor. When he reached the kitchen door, he found Professor Poncet seated at the round dining table, engrossed in a book. Peering over his reading glasses perched on the tip of his nose, the professor nodded to Azer and said, "Come on in and take off your wet jacket." Seeing Azer's pallor and cold hands, the professor rose and remarked, "You look like you could use a warm cup of tea." He added, "I've given up coffee at night, it ruins my night's sleep and without proper rest, the brain goes haywire." Azer replied, "A hot cup of tea will do just fine. Thank you." He placed the backpack against the wall and placed the helmet on it. He hung his jacket on the back of the chair, sat down at the table, and glanced around the kitchen. The apartment seemed far less opulent than the clinic. The professor set 2 tea mugs and a plate of cookies on the table, along with a hefty wooden cutting board. He soon returned with an antique ceramic kettle filled with hot water, and a couple of tea bags inside, and placed it on the board. Sitting down again, he said, "Please help yourself to tea. It's quiet." Before he could finish, the professor's gaze grew vacant, and he stared straight ahead. After a few seconds, he added, "When it's so cold." Azer looked at him, unsure of what was happening. The professor lifted the teapot, filling Azer's mug before pouring his own. As if nothing had occurred, he looked at Azer and inquired, "Where's your fiancée?" Azer replied, "She's been kidnapped. I have no idea where she is." Ignoring the first part, the professor took a sip of his tea and remarked, "Typical, isn't it? Young women vanishing in this city, and they usually reappear after a few days." Azer said, with a slow and steady voice, "Professor, she was abducted at gunpoint." Startled, the professor turned to him and asked, "What do you mean, abducted at gunpoint? Where?" Answering his own question, he mused, "Oh, let me guess, Konrad-Zustrasse." He added, "I warned you about that dangerous neighborhood." After a brief silence, he inquired, "Did you see who they were?" Without mentioning Topaz breaking into the house to retrieve the hard drive, Azer replied, "Yes, I saw them, but I couldn't stop them. They were armed." He pulled his cell phone from his pocket and displayed the screen to the professor, saying, "This is all I have." The professor stared at the screen. As Azer thought the professor's brain had stopped running again, he said, "Professor?" The professor responded, "Yes." Azer smiled and said, "A moment ago, you seemed frozen, like a paused TV screen. You were just staring ahead." Azer had observed similar episodes earlier in the afternoon when he and Topaz had visited the professor at the clinic. He had assumed the professor was fatigued and losing concentration. The professor replied, "Oh, did it happen again? I don't notice these episodes. My secretary, Annabella, saw it the other day too. It seems like some form of epileptic seizure." Without further explanation, he stood up and said, "I suppose I need to take a pill."